Hello and welcome to another episode of Teens on the Road, the one and only podcast for full-time RVing teenagers. I'm your hostess Kayla, and here with us today is fellow nomad Isabelle. Hi, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Kayla. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. So, where are you right now?
Right now, I am in Wyoming. I had a home base in Montana that I was temporarily in after taking a break from full-time RVing for a couple of months to ski, but now we're back on the road and in Wyoming.
Awesome. And you're there with your sister and you're going to go rock climbing, right?
Yes, we are here to rock climbing. Wyoming has some amazing rock climbing.
Yep, unfortunately, Isabelle is snowed in right now, so no rock climbing for her today, but
Yep, just hiding in the RV.
it'll clear up, don't worry. Okay, so this is the question that I like to ask everybody because everybody's is different, but it ends up kind of being the same. What is your family's story? What prompted you guys to start traveling and exploring?
So the reason we started living on the road, my mom was the main spearhead for it because she's always liked to do things differently than most. And if she wanted something, her question was always like, why not do it? So I'm originally from California and I lived in inland San Diego when one day my mom decided I wanted to live closer to the beach. So we moved into a beachfront house. We watched the dolphins swim by every day as we did school from home because we were all homeschooled. um, and while we were living in that beachfront house, one year she decided that she wanted to rent an RV and just go on a camping trip. Um, we had never gone camping. I had never gone camping really before. And we loved it so much that my mom said, why stop? And so, that just seems like a pretty simple reason to just make a drastic change in your life and move into life on the road is why stop doing it?
Mm.
So in 2015 of April, we decided to move out of our house and move into a 30-foot Class C with my family of 7 in all. And we said we were probably going to do it for 6 months, and then it just kept stretching on and on. And 7 years later, we are still doing it.
That is quite the story. So, how old were you when you moved into the RV?
I was 11.
How did you adjust to that change?
Given that I was fairly young and I didn't really have many care, I was always an easygoing child. Um,
Mm.
so when I was 11 and we moved in, I was just like, it sounds cool, sounds fun. And so it wasn't really a hard shift for me. I mean, especially because when we first moved into the RV, we literally were moved into a campground that was just down the road. So we had
Mm.
gone from our beachfront house and then like a 5 minute to the campground near us. So it was a really easy transition. There were some hard parts as I got older, but the initial transition was really easy.
Hmm, that's interesting. Was there something you thought you would hate about RV life but ended up liking, or vice versa?
Hmm. One thing I've noticed that so there's nothing that I initially was worried about when I moved into an RV because I grew up homeschooled and I was always around my family. So we were already really close together. So
Mm.
worries of like space or friends weren't really an issue for me. But one thing I've noticed over the years that has bothered me more than I noticed was the lack of space because this RV that we lived in for the majority of the years is really tiny. It was 30 feet long, probably about 200 square feet of living space,
And for
and
7 people.
7 people. And one of them is with my dad, who is a personal trainer and a power lifter. So we're not small people. And so the space eventually I did notice start to get to me, like the lack of space. But that
Mm.
ended up pushing me to being outside more. So that was something that I didn't expect to happen. And we had started off our travels in search of always. My mom is a very adventurous person, and so is my older sister. So they had surfed before we moved into the RV, and we had just gone into rock climbing when we moved into the RV. So our travels were based around that. I
Mhm.
myself, though, wasn't very adventurous. I was kind of more of a homebody. And this RV lifestyle got me more introduced into the world of the outdoors. And that became something that I didn't realize I was going to love so much. And now the outdoors are basically the main pillar of my life.
Awesome. That seems like a real blessing, like turn starting out maybe like kind of a hermit and then having to get out of your comfort zone. And
Yes.
you said that you had to get outside more because you wanted the personal space, and that just, I mean, what better personal space than the outdoors, you know?
Yes, for sure.
So, what are some insights that you've gained over the years?
That is a very broad question. I mean, in my years, okay, so not only am I obviously a traveler, but a lot of full-time travelers I've met still are usually homeschooled, and they go with the grain of the natural homeschooling curriculum.
Mm.
But I grew up basically the second we moved into an RV, I became unschooled and I did like no school whatsoever. Unfortunately, so I sound kind of like Huckleberry Finn, you know? So I'm like, oh yeah, like I just lived in the woods, did no school. But it is kind of true. Um, because I was just given the free do anything I wanted. And my mom told me, as long as you do something that you're passionate about and you have some form of motivation, I don't care what you do, I don't care what you learn, just focus on doing something every day. So I had the free reign to learn about anything that I wanted in the past 7 years. And that too gave me a lot of different insights and lessons over the past 7 years because I ended up focusing all of my time on self development, on self awareness, on mindfulness, on understanding myself. So there's
Mm.
a huge realm of self awareness that I gained through this lifestyle that I could say insights are. But probably the biggest insight I learned from growing up as a teen on the road is that high school is the dumbest thing ever, and more teens should be living on the road and doing things the non conventional way.
Mm. It gives you more space to, like you said, discover yourself and self-awareness.
Yes, and discover your desires as well because so many high schoolers are being pushed from like through year after year of school and then just are supposed to decide on what they want out of life when they have no life experience, have been sitting at a desk 9 to 5 and have never been told that they can go after their passions or enjoy life that is outdoors, that is unconventional, that is different.
Yeah. And then, kids are supposed to find themselves in college, find themselves. But
Yeah,
they're thrust into an even more pressured educational landscape. And if they drop out of college, then you can sometimes be seen as a failure.
exactly.
So it's like doesn't feel like a win-win situation. So, do you have any current or recent struggles with RV life? I know you guys just moved back in, but.
Yeah, so the biggest struggle, I mean, this has always been the biggest struggle over the 7 years that slowly became more and more amplified. So in case you haven't noticed, or maybe it's more and more becoming a trend that is the reason you started this podcast, that there's not many teens who live on the road.
Mm.
Most teens go to school, they live in their house. And as I was living in an RV, I noticed this a lot. There were some families we met when I was younger, when I was 11. First, and RV life wasn't that big when we started. So the few
Right.
people we did meet who were living RV life was weird. And it seems like, wow, someone else is doing this. But they
Yeah.
had younger kids. And when they hit that high school age, they always decided, oh, we have to go back to a house because they have to go to high school. So this ended up leading to being very different from our peers, from my
Mm.
peers, and not having many friends, especially like minded ones, because the few friends who I did keep up with, we slowly became more and more apart. We just didn't get each other.
Yeah.
And years later, now it's very hard to find like minded people. So that's been the biggest struggle overall, probably the mainly the only one, because everything else has become we found solutions for, like work. We decided we don't want to do things the 9 to 5 way, so we
Mm.
became entrepreneurs. Space finding solutions to that, but the friends one is definitely a big struggle because so many people don't want to do this, feel bad doing this with their teens.
Yeah. Well, Isabel, welcome to the Teens on the Road family. We are on Instagram and you can meet all past guests and future guests, which is
I'm part of the club, yay.
yay. Yes, that's probably been the main struggle for me too. It's like there's just not a lot of teens. And if there are teens, then they're not going to go to a lot of full-time families because again, all the full-time families have little kids. It's
Yes,
just
all
a weird
the main,
cycle.
it's amazing, really. Like most of the people are so shocked when they like see our RV and then they see seven of us in it. because most of the full-time families we'll come across have like little 2-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and they're in their pretty airstream, with all the pretty
Yeah.
lights, and you come in our RV and it's just like chaos everywhere, not trendy whatsoever, because there's so many of us, and it's not like it's easy. With toddlers, it's easier to keep things organized because you're not watching for so many people, but with 7 people, it gets messy quick.
Yeah, definitely. So have you ever like how do you have any advice for other teens on dealing with the loneliness factor?
So this one small thing of friends is actually the thing I got asked about the most in our years of travel. Whenever we met up with other families who maybe didn't have teens, they would just look in horror and think, but what about friends? Because they are so concerned about that, and it is such an issue. And the solution to that really requires a huge reconstruction of the self, and really, it's no easy work because you have to go into all the beliefs and all the things that society has told you. Because
Mhm.
overall, as a society, we have become very disconnected from ourselves, and we've looked for validation, for acceptance, for a sense of meaning, all through other people. And we see this a lot with school in general, and like in high school and in college, how everyone wants to be part of a club, or they want to get good grades so that they get into a good college so that they appear successful. We see it how people get obsessed with what they wear, or how their makeup looks, because they want to make sure they look good to their peers. And so living on the road, you don't have the opportunity to get that acceptance from other people. And so for me, living on the road, and for my sister as well, there's this moment where we had to realize, well, no one's going to give us that feeling that we want to create, so we have to create it for ourselves. And it became a whole mindfulness journey, that we had to realize, well, what is really going to make us happy in life? If we can't find peers to bring us a sense of fulfillment and connection, what else is going to? And so we end up not only doing deep self work to look at all our insecurities and our lack of confidence, and lack of like feelings of accepting ourselves or worthiness, but we had to find other ways of fulfilling ourselves, because not it's a very important to have friends. I would never say any differently, but we've become, so as a society, we believe that friends are sometimes the answer, and we don't look enough at like, or what we do for work, or what makes us feel like our life is meaningful, what makes it feel purposeful. So when people ask, what about friends, like, you must be so sad you don't have friends, I'd tell them like, well, look, I'm 18 and I now business that I'm passionate about. I follow my other passions as well on the side. I'm getting to do what I love every day. I'm going in search of hiking and rock climbing and mountain biking. I'm standing on top of these mountain peaks overlooking the fjords of Norway. And you're asking me if I feel negative because I'm not texting someone right now? So there's this realization that I had to have, where there's more to life than friends. And I
Mm,
think that's something, that a piece of advice I would give to any high schooler, whether they're living on the road or whether they're going to school, is the realization, like, look, we do need connection, but there's so much more to life than friends. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do with your life? Forget about college. What would you want to do with for work right now? How could you pursue that? What else makes you feel full of meaning and full of joy? And where are you going to challenge yourself? What's going to make you feel as if you're living more than just in a little bubble in this world, in this matrix?
mm. Yeah, I have no trouble believing that you are a mindfulness coach.
Yeah, I apologize if that was a bit of a tangent, but
No, that
it
was
was.
great. And yeah, you're right, there is a lot more to life than friends. It's like requiring you to live in the moment when you're traveling and see things the way they are, that you're traveling and a lot of people don't get this opportunity. And actually, it's going to help you connect with other people a lot better.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that while I've never made friends really my age in the past 7 years, that doesn't mean I didn't always have connection, because there are moments where I ended up our life is a teacher. And so I grew up faster than the average teen, And I have pretty much, like, we make jokes all the time that, like, me and my sister pretty much have the mind of a 30-year-old, and we're in the bodies of, like, college kids. So we ended up connecting with adults and with older people all the time. And people are like, wow, you're wise beyond your years. And you end up making friends through those passing moments. It's just not that they're your age. So start seeing past, like, for teens on the road. My advice too is, don't let yourself be intimidated by the whole quote unquote like adults who are living on the road and seem so much older than you. Just start a conversation and you might end up making a friend.
Yeah. I actually have found that I like talking to adults sometimes more than regular teens.
Yes. And I blame that on society for not teaching us social skills.
Yes, pretty much. Well, that was good insights there. I have to agree. So, what are your personal top 5 places? I'm not gonna say what's your favorite place because I don't think anybody has a really favorite place.
Oof, top 5 is still hard though. Okay, so the first that come to mind are the Alps and Montana, because, and that's based kind of going off of right now, but Montana has a very special place in my heart, but no one should go. It's awful there. Don't,
Yeah,
yeah, you don't need to go. It's awful.
it's
But
only special for Isabelle.
yes, it does need to get more crowded there. But of 5 favorites of all time, so Montana in general is very one of my favorite places. Amazing outdoors and great people. The Alps, because it's some of the most beautiful mountains I have ever seen. I did a backpacking trip through the Alps. It was 108 miles, and we did it in 7 days. And it was the best experience ever because you're hiking through these stunning, vast, huge mountains, and you're eating French baguettes and Italian risotto, all
Ugh.
fresh made, surrounded by genuine people who are also experiencing it.
I don't think I've ever been more jealous.
It was pretty cool. It should definitely be experienced once. You'll experience it one day.
One day.
Um, let's see where else. Alaska, I would probably
Uh,
say is on that list. Alaska is amazing. We drove there from the tip of California, the very bottom of California, all the way up to Alaska. We drove in 2019, and it was so beautiful there. Never seen more bears than on that drive. Um, but Alaska is so beautiful, even with the sun staying out all summer, making you feel like it's always 1 p.m.
right.
But the mountains, again, are beautiful there. And the wilderness is even more stunning than any other place I've been. Let's see. So, Alaska, Alps, Montana, those last two are kind of hard. Maybe Wyoming might be on that list for me
Mm,
because Wyoming is so beautiful and it has some amazing nature. And also, again, great people, but so different from any other place. It's nothing like Montana, or not even the same energy, so different.
mm.
And for the last place, hmm, I don't know if I can decide on that one. I mean, I end up, if I had to spend time only for the rest of my life in a few places, I would probably pick like Colorado, because Colorado its mountains are, can't get old ever.
Right.
But there's been a lot of other places and travels that I can't think of right now that have been amazing.
Mm. All right. So, do you have a bucket list for the future? Places you have not gone that you would love to go?
Honestly, I should probably have a bucket list, but I let my sister just tow me around everywhere. She'll say, "We're going here." And I'll just say, "Okay."
That's fun.
So, probably one day we'll get to Patagonia and like hiking through there. Um, and more of Eastern Europe. Those are the two general places I can think of.
What is one place you would never go again?
Oh, China, straight up. Uh,
China.
yeah, so I had a lay. So we in 2018 we flew to Hawaii in February. And then after spending a month there, we flew straight to New Zealand and spent, I think, another month there. And then we flew to Bali from there. So we hopped from Hawaii to New Zealand to Bali. And Bali was a really hard experience. I would almost say that I wouldn't go back there, but I think that was mainly because we were staying in rural Bali, where
Mm,
you had to walk through like cow fields to get to the one restaurant, and there's no appliances. The like running water would always go out. But
wow.
if you stayed in the right area, Bali could be nice. But point is, after we had that exhausting time of like back to back travel for 3 months, and we had planned on having only like a 2 hour layover in China, but it ended up getting shifted and it was 24 hours. And so we had to get a hotel in China. I can't remember which city it was, but it was a big city. Um, and it was the probably the worst or most terrifying experience in all of my travels, because you feel so locked in there and
Mm,
everything is so strict, and like you walk in through the wrong door and like people are pointing guns at you and holding up shields saying, hey, like go the other way. It was
dang.
not comfortable, so I would never go back to China.
Well, all right then.
I was very passionate about that one just because
Yeah,
I was
that's
like, that's the
extreme.
one I will do. Everywhere else I'll reconsider.
Yeah. How many countries have you been to?
27.
That's awesome. And have you been to all 50 states?
No, I have not. We are a bit addicted to the mountains, so every time we tried to get past the Rockies, we kind of got stuck. We eventually
Ah,
made it to Florida and Kentucky, and a little bit of the East last year, but we haven't been to all 50 states or 50 states. Oh, my brain really
it's
got
okay.
confused there.
That's
I need
okay.
more coffee.
Yeah. Yes. How many states do you think you've been to? Like 40?
Oh, let me think. How many states have I been to? Less than I would guess. I would probably say closer to like 20.
Really?
Yeah, we have not hit, there's a lot. We haven't hit any of the Northeast. We've barely hit the East. We've really haven't, I wouldn't even count. We've technically driven through Georgia and Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi, but we haven't really stayed in those South states. We really have
Yeah.
only visited on past, we've, we've gone the farthest west or the farthest east we've actually really spent time in is Nebraska and South Dakota. But any farther east, and we've really just driven through it. And then we spend some time in Kentucky and Florida, and then we spend all of our time on the west. So Colorado, Idaho, not so much California anymore, or Washington, but all of those, the Rocky Mountains is where we stay. So we haven't been to many states.
I'm getting the gist that y'all aren't really city people, huh?
No, we are definitely not city people. We grew up in San Diego, which is a pretty big city, but we pretty much stay off grid.
That's awesome. So, what do you think is your funniest RV experience?
Funniest RV experience? We've had a lot of them, but the first one that comes to mind is in 2016. We flew to Europe for 6 months, all seven of us, with backpacks on our back.
Mhm.
And we first flew to Ireland and we're in a tent, and we flew to Norway and we were in a tent. Um, but when we got to mainland Europe, we rented an RV. It was a little smaller. It was like probably 20 feet, 20-foot
Mhm.
RV, maybe 25.
Pretty
Um,
small.
and so, yeah, pretty small for sure. And on top of it, like I said, we're avid adventurers. So not only were there seven of us in an RV and in a tent, but we also had a huge surfboard bag with three surfboards. And we had two rock climbing bags. And then we had 7 bags for 7 people. So we had a ton of gear with us. And so we had this RV that we rented all across mainland Europe. And I believe we were in the Netherlands when all of a sudden we're driving down this road in the Class C. My mom's driving and it's chaotic. You can't really see what's going on because there's so much traffic. It looks like there's road work ahead. We're driving this huge RV. We're the only RV, it seems to be, on the road. And all of a sudden, there's a tram, like a train coming towards us. Not full speed, luckily, pretty slow, but we're stopped right in front of this tram. And then so there's all this traffic behind us, and there's nowhere to go or nowhere to turn around. So my mom just says, you know what, I'm backing up. She puts it in reverse. Everyone starts moving out of the way, and we're backing up. And this tram is just coming at us as we start backing up. So we're backing out of backing out of Ghent is always what we call it, because that's the name of the town we were in. And we remember that forever because it was just the most ridiculous experience. And I don't know who else. We seem to be like the only people who rent an RV and go down that road. And we were probably just looked like the idiot tourists ever.
Was the tram on the wrong side of the road? What how did that even happen?
You know what? I was 12 at the time, so it's hard to remember, but I guess it was just like, like the tram was coming on the road. It was in the middle of like the two-way street. And so we couldn't really see the lines because there's so much traffic. I don't know what happened. Driving in Europe is very strange.
Yeah, that's dramatic right there. So, I think we're getting to the end of our segment. So, we have a question from our last guest, Bella. The question is, what would you change about the current setup that you and your sister are living in?
This is a really good question because we were really thinking through our setup for a really long time, because we have two RVs, one which is a 28-foot Class C. That's the one we originally lived in. And then
Mhm.
as we got bigger, my mom bought a 42-foot fifth wheel, and we lived in that for a while, but we kept both. And so for a long, long time, we were trying to figure out what we were going to live in momentarily, as we tried to find more independence and more on our own. And we couldn't decide if we were going to do our Classy, which is name is Momo. We call it Momo. So we couldn't decide if we were going to live in Momo or if we were going to get a trailer, because we also need, the problem is with a Classy is that if you don't have a vehicle to get around,
Right.
unless you bring a second vehicle. And we had just gotten a truck, which is so much better for getting to our rock climbing destinations.
Right.
So we ended up going with keeping our Classy, and we have a truck as well. And it's actually really comfortable. So the only thing I would change about my setup right now is that, to sidetrack a little so you understand what I mean, in 2018, this Class C that I'm currently living in got totaled, and we were driving on the freeway, and a truck and trailer smashed into the back. So we had to remodel the whole thing. And so right now, we have no table or running water in our RV. So the one thing I would take question, the one thing I would change in the RV right now is to get a table or some running water. That would be quite the luxury. But
What do
other
you
than
do
that,
for water?
well, so we fill, because each campground has a hose to run water, so we'll fill water gallons, and then just use it to do our dishes. We'll heat up water on the stove, and then we'll wash all the dishes by hand and rinse them with a gallon of water. And it's actually, you get used to it, so it's not that hard. It's been like that for a while. Like I said, that was 2018, so that was almost 5-ish years ago, on and off, if you estimate, because we had been in and out of it. So we've gotten used to it. But it'd be nice to have some running water, so you don't have to do dishes by hand, or just have a table so that I could sit and at it and work.
Wow, no running water.
Yep.
Dang. You can tell people like be grateful for your running water.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That definitely taught me, this lifestyle has taught me a lot of gratitude for basic things.
Yeah, totally. After going to Bali, I can imagine that too.
Yes, for sure. Bali was definitely an enlightening experience.
That's interesting. Well, do you have any questions for me or closing thoughts?
Well, if you could live, Kayla, in an RV for the rest of your life, would you?
Hmm. I'm gonna say probably not, because I have a very clear career path that I want to go on that can't really have me in an RV. I want to be a teacher and own my own school, and obviously can't really be in an RV traveling around when I am trying to start a school. And I mean, I probably would be cool with living in an RV for the rest of my childhood to some extent, but probably not the rest of my life. I do want to travel a lot when I'm older, though, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers.
What about you? Would you live in an RV for the rest of your life?
Well, my goal for life is to do both, because why not?
Mhm.
So I want to have a vehicle that I can travel in for most of the year, but I love to snowboard, so I want to have a home base for winter.
Montana.
Yes, exactly.
Montana's still terrible. Don't go there.
Yes, it's awful. No, it's like so bad there. You guys, anyone who wants to travel there would hate it.
Totally. There's no good qualities about Montana. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today, Elizabeth. Sorry, Isabelle.
You're fine. Thank you for having me, Kayla.
I had Elizabeth on my mind. Hi, Elizabeth. And thank you to all you nomads out there for listening. If you want to be on the podcast, check out our link below or message us on Instagram at teens.on-the-road. That's again at teens.on-the-road. Also, if you know any traveling teens, be sure to share Teens on the Road with them. Thank you for listening and have fun out there. Side note, Isabelle her family has a pretty big YouTube following, so I will link that below. And she's got mindfulness classes for kids and for adults. Be sure to check those out too. Links are all below. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.